Hi, my name is David Passmore, and I'm a professor in the Workforce Education and Development Program at Penn State. Everybody in the room knows we're at Penn State, but if you're connected via Google Plus Hangout on Air, welcome. I don't know where you are. I know we have some people from Dallas and other places. But today we're going to be talking about, with Jerry Maddox, and I'll introduce him in a second, Raspberry Pi, which is, if you've seen our graphic, it's a discussion today of an inexpensive credit card-sized computer. It's really revolutionizing the delivery of educational materials. And it is particularly useful for people who have limited access to the kind of fast networks that we all know about, and also to the great desktop displays and computing, and don't have access to the income that really it takes to become an internet user. And this is a lot of the world, it turns out, and a lot of the world that we're unfamiliar with. But Jerry's going to remind us about this today. And just to help us out here, I'm going to introduce Jerry a bit. Jerry's a professor of art in the School of Visual Arts at Penn State, and he was an early pioneer in online learning at Penn State, and I think has the distinction of having one of the earliest, if not the earliest, online course at Penn State, teaching art at Penn State Altoona, if I remember correctly.
Penn State Altoona.
Okay. And Jerry's been generous enough to share his expertise and interest in Raspberry Pi. And I want to mention a couple of things. If you're in the room, you have something to say, the microphone's up at the front of the room. Speak up, use your outdoor voice, the one your mother told you to keep down just before you went to bed. This is the one you use in this room. And also, if you're at a distance and you're watching this online, we have a web page set up, and we have some people helping us out here. Yu Kyung Park is in the back of the room here, monitoring the chat in this. So if you have a question, type it in, and we'll inject it here. Rose Baker to the right of me is doing the same thing, so she'll keep an eye on things. And I wanted to thank Chad Che, who's sitting up in the front here, who worked really hard to put a lot of the technology together on this. Believe me, we had more technology, but we couldn't choke Google hard enough to get it to operate today. So we're going to do a few mind-bending things for us, at least, to connect a few different cameras here and things. So we'll work from there. So Jerry, I want you to have a chance to tell us, and we also want to take a look at the Raspberry Pi too. So Chad can help us out with that.
I think Chad's going to make a picture of the Raspberry Pi, which is sitting here on this white cloth. It's a small computer, and it's about the size of a credit card, or about the size of a deck of cards. The computer itself costs about $35, and in the case, another $5, $10. This one has a 32 megabyte chip, which means this is another $30 more or less cost. But that chip, large chip, is what makes possible the storage of an immense amount of information. Just to put that in perspective, that you could store about 50,000 books on a chip that size.
So people can get that from the this up here. This is it's about the size of a pack of cards, really,
yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And that, so it's the basic thing. Now, it was developed in Cambridge, I guess, 18 months or so ago, to teach students to develop for computer. It's taken off for many, many other uses, many of which have to do with all kinds of devices and cameras and closing and opening doors, and it's lots and lots and lots of different sorts of things. But what I see, it has incredible potential for making information and teaching materials available to people who are located in such a place where they can't get online, or they're in such a place like a prison where they're allowed to get online, or if they're too poor, they can't afford to pay for internet access.
Could we take a tour of the little box that you have there, just because Chad has this on the camera, and this has an amazing number of ports out And you have a couple of other things added on here. Maybe you give us an idea of what
Okay.
those are and what they cost.
One of these, this is a Wi-Fi connection, which is how. Okay, sorry. Which is a Wi-Fi connection, which is what makes it possible for people, as they are here in the room, to connect to this device. This is the card sticking on the back. This is the power, and I often use it on a battery. It takes very little power. This connection over on this side can connect to a monitor or to both computer monitor and also connect to a television set. There are a couple of, and there's Ethernet connection here. I mean, there's a whole lot of different connections. If you want to find out more about the Raspberry Pi, if you go to Raspberry Pi, now that's Pi, which is a misspelling of Python, not a misspelling of the food. And so it's Raspberry Pi, and you'll find a lot of information material and places where you can get them. This is the version B. The version A is just $25, and it's somewhat less powerful.
So the side that the camera doesn't see right now has a card that, similar to a card that you might put into a camera, right?
Yeah.
And you have 32 gigabytes of storage on that, right?
That's right.
In this one. So this is a way of really, this is bigger than certainly some computers a few years ago, right?
Oh yeah, well, what it makes it possible, as I say, the amount of information you can store on that means that you could have this immense library of material of various kinds. And if you look at the Rachel site, you can see all the material they have, which includes a lot of the Khan Academy videos, a lot of the Gutenberg Project books, health and materials, all kinds of different directions, different kinds of material.
I have a comment. That 32-byte chip is only where the operating system is stored. You can also attach an external hard drive, and that gives you immeasurable amount of storage.
Yeah. Then also you can use thumb drive. Yeah. So the reason why I was just pointing out that, and you could have much more space if you wanted to, and also you can go to a 64 gig card.
It doesn't support 62 gigabytes.
It doesn't. Okay, I thought it did.
No.
Yeah. Okay, no.
That's version C that will come out.
But in any case, certainly you can add a lot more storage to it very easily. It would be a 64 gig thumb drive. But that material is very available, which one of the things that makes that very I think important for education, particularly in isolated places, is the cost of moving books there and storing them.
Sure, because that's Wi-Fi, multiple people can connect.
Yes, and for this, at least the material I've seen, we've connected up to about 30 people to a single one of these computers, which means a classroom. Everybody in the classroom could be connected to the material, which they could then share with each other, or they could be working separately and going back and forth. And one of the things that I'm interested in people who are involved in education is what other kinds of materials do you think would be good to add to it? Yeah.
So I'm thinking with MOOCs now, the massive open online courses, big worldwide acceptance, but there are a lot of places where internet connection or even time, like buying time through a cell phone plan or something, is a problem. So if we'll send one of those there, support a whole.
The problem with those, if say an hour of video takes about 16 gigs, that eats up an awful lot of.
If you can connect it to a hard drive.
Well, yeah, but I would that's that problem. But as I said, that's one of the issues of working with. I'm pointing out that working with video is very large. It's very difficult to access on many devices.
Well, not all. I mean, so most MOOCs are 12 minute to 20 minute videos, and there's usually a script too, so
Yeah.
if you can't do the video, the transcript is there, so you don't really.
Yeah, no, I realize that. Part of the reason my criticism and concerns is with the Khan Academy material, which is a real problems for colorblind. It's a real problems for anyone who's trying to do math and follow and go back and forth. I think that they're of really doubtful value, the Khan Academy thing, because of the problems of accessibility. And that's something that I feel very strongly about, is that, flexibility, usability, accessibility are so important to me in what I do and what I try to teach, that I have real concerns about particularly the Khan Academy. And also, this is an aside, which I'd like to have people talk about on another occasion, is after 60 years of trying to use video to teach, why has it never become a central tool for teaching? The reason why I taught a course on video in 1958 was the way of the future, and it didn't succeed. Cut back again and again. We had all these pre-mock things at Harvard, MIT, and NYU, and Stanford, and they collapsed. I don't know why, but my concern is that we invest a lot in those ideas and not look at why these things fail consistently over a long period of time, that we risk wasting an awful lot of money and time.
So Jerry and I had some discussions outside. When you talk about content, one thing I just thought of, if this is going to be something that, say, I would want to help others move to provide for teachers in sub-Saharan Africa and work with some of their ministries to get, a wide-scale distribution of this, what they probably want on it would be stuff that the ministry would want to upload, or the teachers themselves would say, hey, we want the central curriculum uploaded so we have access to it, or hey, we want certain lessons. So what my understanding, telling you, is this is fairly set. It's kind of locked in. Is it programmable? Could teachers easily say what they want uploaded and how hard it would be for them to upload stuff?
That would be fairly easy to do in a couple of different ways. One is you could simply have that material available to download onto a thumb drive, and so they can maybe plug the thumb drive in with that material on it. Or they could be taught how to simply save those files that they can download to the folder in the racial www folder. Or you could have separate cards. They could have it come and they could insert a separate card that has that material on it. There's a variety of different ways you can approach that, but it certainly would be very easy to do. And you see the material that I've got up there, that's stuff that I developed, which I then posted and put into the actual, and had somebody create a folder for me, and that test folder is this material I put up. And I formatted it and put it up. Part of my intent there was to format it in such a way that it really works well on all devices. And that's another part of the issue.
Could you give us an idea, just in terms of the financial part to this? Let's take a look at buying it here.
Yeah.
What's this cost?
Well, everything that's there would cost about $70,
Okay.
$75.
So that includes the Wi-Fi?
That includes the Wi-Fi, the case, the card, and the computer.
And I know when we did our little promo video, we were at the library and you had that little battery pack. What's that?
Battery pack. The battery was, I think, $25. Maybe wrong about that, but it wasn't not a lot. Also, I have a solar charger which I can charge that battery with. And a lot of the uses of this in Africa, they use solar chargers because it takes very little power. And so it's very much within means to be able to use solar chargers to be able to provide the power.
Just on the financial side, I think it was really interesting. Jerry and I were talking one day and he said that it costs more to buy a desk in some places than it costs to put together a Raspberry Pi. it costs more in many cases for a month of cable access and internet access than it takes to get this.
Yeah. And one of the uses that I had envisioning for it is when I'm talking about single mothers. And for you could have the whole setup, including the monitor and all of that, for what 2 months of internet access would cost. It's that kind of scale of how much it costs to be able to have this material available. And those are for people who say live too far away to go to the library, or they live in places where it's too dangerous to go at night to go to the library. There's a whole lot of situations where people cannot go to the public spaces where you can access the internet, which people often talk about. Yeah, and libraries are wonderful, but they're also the opportunity of someone being able to take their kids and go off to the library. And there are a whole lot of problems with that. Also, if you're driving there, there's all the cost of gas.
What's the range of the Wi-Fi?
What?
The range of the
Well,
Wi-Fi?
as far as I've been able to test it, about 80 feet. And that's it. I mean, I've had it in the factory show, and I was down the hall and was accessing it. Now, and of course, a lot of that depends on the building it's in and what kind of walls that they have, and all the.
There's also a lot of different adapters you can use. Like that's, but by no means the only Wi-Fi adapter. Yeah, you can have different antennas.
We have some questions from the net.
Several questions online here. One is, how much are the solar chargers?
Solar charger was, for the, in Africa, those, or they vary tremendously in cost, because I've looked at them, and so you get all the way from things that cost $500,000 to things that cost $30 or $40. How good and useful those are, I can't judge. I mean,
You have to charge the battery pack.
the charger, that one was, I think, $20 or $20. It was not, that wasn't expensive.
And would you go over the cost again of what this device actually costs?
The Raspberry Pi is $35.
So that's the computer itself,
The
right?
computer itself. The case was, I think, $9. The Wi-Fi connection was, I think, $10 or $11. And the card was like $30.
So I just want to clarify for people out there, because sometimes the video is freezing in and out for them. So inside the box is a computer, a wireless Wi-Fi.
Wi-Fi, that's it.
So the Wi-Fi.
That's it, and this is the card.
The card. And this is where you can put in the hard drive?
The hard drive would be where the wireless adapter is.
Okay.
It's just a typical USB port.
Okay.
Yeah. Because here there are 2 USB ports in here. Also, I have a thing where USB that has multiple ports on it, so you can, as I had plugged into a keyboard and mouse.
You have one other item, there's a power supply.
Yeah, there is the cord for the power supply, yeah, I should mention.
There's an HDMI port and a VGA video port and an Ethernet port.
So you could go to monitor,
Yeah, we've got
video unit.
all kinds of.
Okay.
Quite adaptable.
There.
Okay. And another person asked, what are the operating systems for the Pi?
It's Linux, it works with Python is what,
Okay.
that's for PI.
There's a lot of different distros.
Yeah.
Many.
So is it primarily a Linux-based system?
Linux-based system, but it's a lot of different resources out there. Like you can put XBMC, which is like a media center,
Yes.
and obviously people have hacked it to do all sorts of home automations. It's very
Let the dog in, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If I understand, the media
These-
center, could a teacher, if she's got lessons,
Mhm.
and her students would have some kind of device, could she literally set that up in her classroom and say, okay, there's, math worksheets or math problems here, Khan Academy stuff that's been downloaded, and then have the students interacting with it on their device via this wireless?
Well, the XBMC Media Center is more of a singular unit. Like what he has set up right now is basically a a web-based system. So anything that you could have on a website here that you would look at, you could have broadcast there. Like you said, it's only a matter of coding it and putting it in the right folder. And the limitations with that is that he has a 32 gigabyte card here, and if you wanted to have videos, I'd say the furthest you could compress, like an hour and a half movie, whatever, would be about like 500 megabytes. But if you could somehow link it so that the external hard drive would be connected to that folder, that would be great.
But in terms of just say simple pages, a teacher, you know, they're on blackboards in a lot of the schools, in really remote areas of the world. But kids actually might have devices.
Any text-based or picture-based website, it's almost limitless. Like you said, you could have 50,000 or more books on there. So you could have any amount of material.
Also, one of the other things that I've learned about it, it's very easy to teach people how to put together the web page they can use. And as I look at the examples that I have, they're formatted in such a way, they scale to any device, they're accessible, and those are things that I think are really important. So that anybody, anywhere can gain access to them. Okay, anywhere can gain access to them, and regardless of their disabilities, and regardless of the device they're using. John and I have been talking some about e-readers as a wonderful tool because they take very little power. They happen to be all black and white. But that's because then with this low power requirement and that low power requirement, you can be way out in the middle of nowhere and not have a problem being able to access materials.
Jerry, I got a question for you.
Sure.
Let's. How do you respond to the people who have a question? They say, look, the world's connected. And this is something for the world that used to exist when we had fewer connections. But everybody's connected now, and who needs something like this to deliver Wi-Fi for a local area? What's the answer to that?
Just look at the facts. Only about, at most, 30% of the world has a fast connection. Only half of the world has any connection at all. So you're talking about a privileged group of people, at most 30%, who can access and get a fast connection and view live videos and all that sort of stuff. Then there's another percent who are on a slower connection, phone or what have you. But then the other half of the world doesn't have that. Also, of those people where it might be available, look at the number of people in the world live on $1.25 a day. They can't afford to get a wireless connection. They can get some things on their phone, and the phone connection can be, as you very well, it can be very slow and it's not 4G, but this kind of material could be accessed through that kind of a phone, but also much more easily accessed through one of these things independent of the internet. Another problem, I happen to be very aware of this right now because of the storms that are coming through. My Wi-Fi at home keeps going down because I'm on a dish because I have to be on a few miles out of town. And so I'm endlessly rebooting my thing because the storm comes through and I don't have an internet connection. And that's 7 miles outside of St. Cloud. I mean, I'm not talking about some obscure place in the mountain. And that's not uncommon. And it's so easy for people to say, oh, yeah, we get it everywhere. I can't get Wi-Fi in my office here at Penn State.
Different problem.
Yeah. That explains that. I talk about that building. It happens in the building I'm in is a ceramic brick. The ceramic brick is very hard to get signal through. And so that's, but, and just my point is that it's assuming that that's available to everybody is simply false.
And so we've all seen our ability progress, and we think that everybody's along with that. Also, we have pretty much access, to a lot of us, to desktop computing with nice displays and things like that. The world is operating oftentimes through their phone,
Yeah.
which is a different story altogether.
Yeah, and one thing I'd encourage people to do is, with your phone, read one of the novels that I've got up.
The laws of nature.
I read Tessa Duberell's on my phone back a while. It was formatted properly. It's a terrific way to read novels. And it's very, I mean, it really works if things are formatted. But they have to be, that has to be done.
One of the other questions on here is, because you talked about having a keyboard and such, it's just, it's more of a server than it is that you can do any kind of activity, such like word processing, or if they had a job application.
Yeah. Just to explain to the question, before we started, I had a monitor and a keyboard and a mouse, everything set up here to run the Raspberry Pi off of onto a whole computer set on which you could do all of that. Now, it is restricted to just the stuff that's on the web. There's word processors, there's all, and also I was going to point out that with the terminal, you can do type in Python and you can do math. A whole lot of things that can be done on it, which I was going to show them because of the problem of blocking out their vision. We removed all of that material, but it certainly can have all of those tools. And some people, for instance, will set up with the Raspberry Pi a fold-up keyboard and a back tablet or something like that, and use that to do all kinds of work. Now, information input is one of the biggest single barriers to use of almost all these mobile devices. It's really not easy to type on most of them, especially long text. But it is possible to connect some of these portable keyboards or keyboards to a bunch of these devices using the Raspberry Pi. And which opens up a whole lot of possibilities for people to be able to take control over what they're doing, how they're doing it. I think that's a very, very, very important thing, and I was going to talk more about that, but this may well part of the setup.
How steep do you think the technology curve is for someone to begin using this? You see this little device on the table, it's transparent, it's got a whole bunch of stuff in it. Do I have to be an electrical engineer to do this? Or John?
Well, my background is not in science, and it is not in math, it's not engineering, it's in art. I learned HTML, as David mentioned, 19 years ago when I taught the first web course, which was the first web course in the world, not this at Penn State. And I had to teach myself because there were no tutorials. I mean, at that time, you just had to figure it out. But somebody said, who was an engineer, oh, it's not even coding, which I thought was wonderful because that meant I could do it. And I did, and I've done work with HTML all the time since then. And I personally focus very much on HTML, HTML5, and CSS3. As Stuart Brand said, they're this program for the long future, the long now. We all can be aware of how dead Flash is. And you may not remember 10 years ago when it was the future of web design. And it's sticking, and also all of the time we spent with XHTML and all that stuff before people said, let's straighten ourselves out and let's get back to something clear and simple and easy to really work with. And so I would say focusing on HTML5, that it's open to anybody, and I teach students all the time and who have no experience with it, and they learn to do it.
When you buy a Raspberry Pi, it comes in a box.
It doesn't
Is it-
come with an SD card, so you buy an SD card.
All right.
You download one of the distros, the distributions systems or whatever. You put it on the card, plug it in, it works.
Okay, so even though it's not like it's not when your dad had to put together your stuff at Christmas Day and
No,
had an
It's
extra
probably
glass of
easier.
wine after that, yeah.
probably easy.
So if you get it out of the box, plug it in, you get download some material, you get it in, you have an operating system and something working. Okay.
So, and I mean, it looks a lot more complicated than it is because you see a big chip and you think, oh no, it's a computer.
Yeah.
But really, I mean, and that's a see-through box. You can get, whatever color box you want, and then all you have to do is plug the things in, and it should just boot up.
One of the side notes about the box.
Mm-hmm.
I was talking to somebody because I was interested in people in prison. He said, yeah, it's really good to have a clear box. I said, why? Because you can't hide anything in it. And I never thought about that, but it is one of the, those things you need to think about.
We'll remember that.
Yeah.
When it's our turn.
But because saw this as a tool for people who are doing prison, it's a wonderfully useful place to be able to work and learn. And I was trying to examine, this is a guy who spent 10 years or more in prison, so he had a lot of experience.
A couple comments from online. One says it comes with an SD card.
No. Oh, it does? No.
Right? So you buy it separately?
You buy it separately.
Separately, but it's the idea that you get the SD card. They're saying that this is a new feature. Like
So they come in all kinds of, and you buy them that have the cards already formatted, but they're all, if you look up Raspberry Pi and find the ones you can buy, it's a long list of all of them different possibilities.
Yes.
And we're talking about, then there's BeagleBone, and there's a variety of other kinds of inexpensive computers like it. This happens to have been the one that has gotten the most attention.
Right.
And the largest sales and groups and whatever, but there are other tools.
The second largest would probably be Arduino. That was kind of came before this. I think it's on the Radio Shack, prevalent. This one, it was so popular that they sold out. They couldn't manufacture it fast enough.
Okay, that's what one other person had insider, but they heard that it's such demand they couldn't get them huge back orders.
They're pretty much caught up now, I think.
Yeah. They moved the manufacturing to Wales. So they're made in Wales.
Yeah.
They can sing while they're working there.
Yeah.
It's perfect.
One of the resources that I bought it through was a website called Adafruit. I think it might have been an MIT grad started this organization. But not only do they sell the actual device, but they also have a lot of other parts like cards and add-ons that you can use with the device, like the Wi-Fi dongle and a lot of different other things like a real-time clock, if you want to do stuff like that. So,
In your map, right?
yeah, Matthew.
Great for people here saying that you're saying this.
Yeah, so there's a lot of resources out there. And a lot of tutorials too. So you're not convinced that you can do it, there's tutorials you can follow.
It's quite an active user community.
Right, very much so.
They have a show and tell once a week, and typically can't schedule if we want to talk. The lady who started Native Fruit is very good at getting popular things together and with a social networking. I've been really pleased with the way she set up this distribution of social information as well as technical information, encouraging everybody to get involved with it. If you're at all interested in pushing out an idea to someone, then you can do it with something that's not expensive. You can add more things on later, or you can change the way you're doing things, change the technology. And she has quite a few packages, as Matt mentioned, that you can buy. And so the package comes with a case and a power supply, an SD card, and Wi-Fi adapter, and wires, and an extra breadboard, and you can put in a temperature chip and a humidifier, a humidistat, and so you put all these things together, and you have a computer system that can monitor your house temperature and humidity, and sends you a note when your air conditioner stopped working, or something like that. those are projects that go through there, and there's typically 6 to 10 of those every week that get talked about.
Good start, yeah.
So,
So with Annalisa wanting to set up something through her nonprofit, she should go to where, so you said Adafruit?
Adafruit, A-D-A-F-R-U-I-T.
That's what I was going to ask. I was going to ask, what is
ADA. Lady
ADA?
Ada was the person who started modern computational programming. She was some British.
Yeah, no, she was
Yes,
a
I was thinking.
sister of.
That's my sister. And I would suggest starting there or any of the, just Google for whatever you're interested in and add the word Raspberry Pi to the end of it, and there will probably be something that will point you in a direction.
So if someone could, as Jerry was saying down here, a teacher could configure files and the like that might have lessons and other things available. The distribution that you had the Gutenberg
It has
distribution.
it has a number of Gutenberg projects, and it has a bunch of the Khan Academy videos. It also has a bunch of Wikipedia material. It also has a lot of health information. Other tutorials. It's an immense amount of stuff that people can use for teaching and learning. I do, as I wanted to mention, is that there are problems with that in presentation. You actually take the Gutenberg project, they're all text files. The text files are very hard for people to read. And so it makes long prose documents very difficult to read. And that's a preface to something that I want to advocate. And that is, how many people know why the Carolingian minuscule is important?
To know what it is.
Okay. It was the way to write was developed at the end of the 8th and the end of the 9th century, mostly by a man named Alcuin. And if you think of using capital letters and lowercase letters, spacing between words, punctuation, a set line length, get rid of a whole lot of clutter, set width between the lines, that's what they did. And they did it so that the priesthood could have common documents they read during your Charlemagne's empire. And so that you could have a common way in which manuscripts were presented so you could share them across, and that you could teach all these people to read. Also in Charlemagne's court, they taught women to read. And then that format for designing books, when printing came to northern Italy at the mid-15th century, they took those as the models. They thought they were Roman. And then you begin to have books that look like this. This is a reprint of a classic book called by Pietro Bembo. You may be aware of the typeface called Bembo. It's named after who was a man who he climbed on it, and he was also a scribe and a secretary to the Pope. But this is done by a group called in Venice. There are also other groups that did these things. Now, this page, if you look at it, you realize that page is very much like all our pages now. And that's the standard that was really set for a good, readable page. And then if you look at this, which is a novel, set, and this is about 80 years ago, made to be as readable as possible and via access, and to honor the material that's printed. Now, these things are easy to do with HTML. They very often aren't. If you just take 4 simple rules: keep your font size to between 16 and 18 pixels, keep your line length between 30 and 35 em, keep your line height between 1.3 and 1.5 em, and you'll get a remarkably readable document.
Does that hold for, if I have a phone in front of me?
Absolutely. Well, if you were, I've got some markup, which will then make it scale, just like that, which will make it scale so it works on the device, where you have a max width of, and also a little margin. Anyway, so you can do this, and so that the material you present will be readable. And now, people who are poor tend to be distracted, tend to be angry, tend to be frustrated and hopeless. And if you put obstacles in front of them and make it hard for them to read and learn, and less distraction, then you're getting in the way of their deep learning. Also, because branding and sales has gotten to be such a big deal, that we tend to forget we're involved in teaching and learning. And so we should focus on that, which means focusing on the material we want people to learn, not on all the crap around the edges. So try to get rid of that, focus on the material you want people to learn, and be amazed at how much the outcome improves. So under that.
So I'm going back to this idea of trying to
Jared, could you just speak up?
Could
Just speak up a little bit because
Sure.
the mic's way up in the front of the room. Thank you.
So one of the ideas of social applications in rural areas around the world, there's limited internet access, but also the teacher bringing in this device might be the best access point for children and families, and it might actually create a kind of incentive to come to a school or community center to access this neat stuff. Just trying to pull up here, any idea what the durability of some of these systems are? I mean, dust, high altitudes, dropped a couple times, because these are going to be significant factors if it's going to be this kind of mobile, bring a Wi-Fi local net to a remote area.
Somebody has to probably address that better than I can. I mean, Don particularly.
I would call it a throwaway device. That if you go to a location that's in a desert, is blowing sand, and you expect them to leave two of them in Ziploc bags, and one of them you operate, and when it gets to the point where it doesn't operate anymore, put it in one of the Ziploc bags, and take one out of the Ziploc and start using that one. And then by the time you have two dirty ones that need to be cleaned somewhere, you still have one that's operating. And all you've done to increase the cost is a few more dollars with parts.
And all those parts are interchangeable between the computers and probably the media it's on, the SD card. That could just be switched.
SD cards and USB sticks are notoriously undamageable. Flushing in the toilet, getting run over by trucks, kids that put them in their soup, that sort of stuff. It doesn't seem to have much of an impact, and the manufacturers have done, to their credit, a good job of designing them so that they can survive basically any abuse, short of hitting them with a lightning bolt or some sort of electric discharge. You try to specifically damage them.
So durable.
Well, the pie itself may not be durable, and putting it in a case may actually accumulate more dust than if it was outside of the case. But it makes it easier to transport and less likely to get caught on something, or maybe a pin bent over and short or something like that. So the case is a good idea for the transportability and basic utility of the device. But yeah, if I was going to go to a place that was 200 miles from any facilities, I would definitely take two of them with me. Leave one of them in a Ziploc bag and use the other one. In case there was a failure, I just trade it and I say, oh, so what? Okay, next.
I mean, they don't even get very hot or anything.
Right, there's no heat sink.
So you can even
no
put
ventilation.
the whole device in like a hot bag and just run wires out of it.
Just a kind of a question of current use, Jerry, on this. We see the device, we see some of the capabilities and possibilities here. Who's doing this? Who's using it?
Well, I'd suggest if you go to the Rachel site, or it's the World Possible site, and they have a number of instances of places where it's being used and how it's being used. And that There are primarily in Africa now, although there's some moving to Southeast Asia. And where they're using them, one particularly interesting one was where they moved in these the monitors and the setups, and they borrow the desks from the teachers, put them on, and they have the whole room, refurbished, and with, I guess, maybe 5 to 10 Raspberry Pis around the room. Others have them where they share them with devices in the room. There are, I think, maybe 5 or 6 different examples of the use in education using the Rachel Pi. Now, using the Raspberry Pi, as we pointed out, and there are so many different kinds of things. I don't know of the particular ones that I recall. People may have where the Raspberry Pi, as opposed to the Rachel Pi setup, is being used for education, except in the universities to teach computer programming.
Right.
And that's certainly a very important use, but not related quite to what we were, I think, thinking about here. Although it certainly would be a place that you could certainly teach this technology to a lot of people in very isolated places by using it there, where they don't have to be online to be able to do it. And you can also probably have those instruction manuals, all of that right there on your chip, and so people could just find the directions and implement them and see how they work.
Are you or is anybody aware of pickup of these Rachel Pi for uses in the U.S.? You pointed out some that you think are. Do you know of anybody using this?
I'm not aware. I haven't seen anything where Rachel has been used in the U.S. All the focus also with that group has been outside, and particularly in Africa. And then, as I say, some India, and I think Thailand, but I'm not positive about that. Where they're being used. And not big numbers at this point, but they're getting started. Whether you have a classroom, either with a whole bunch of inexpensive monitors, or with people connecting to whatever device they have.
I just pulled up the Rachel. They've already got loaded UNESCO documents around teaching and looking how good they are, but they've got primary math and science in English, French, Portuguese, and Arabic that they're already packaging with this.
And the person wrote on here about some of the Pi specs that they've been able to find, about 700 megahertz, 512 megabytes of RAM, no internal storage. This is where you buy and choose and put things together to make it bigger, better.
Right. Well, that's kind of the core of the Pi. That doesn't change as much between A and B. I mean, that's the only difference you're gonna have. The Raspberry Pi A was the first one that came out, and I think that only had like 256 megabytes of RAM, whereas the B has about twice as much, and it's overclocked. You can even overclock the Pi, so it's even a little more powerful. But yeah, so that stuff doesn't change as much. But you can add functionality through modules, whether you're adding a real-time clock or other things for home automation purposes or whatever. Yeah, and he's got the most that you probably need for an educational atmosphere. I mean, you've got a Wi-Fi dongle, an SD card. Yes, that's just the basic stuff that you need.
So how does somebody go about developing material that they can port to the Pi? So we see when we get the Rachel setup, you already get, as you say, it's pre-configured with a variety of things, and I suppose you can. Let's suppose that we had let's say an intermediate unit in Pennsylvania that was trying to prepare some things for kids who are homeschooled or in other kinds of situations where they're away from a network. How do they need any special skill to not only develop but also to get it into the Pi?
Probably just mostly what he's done already, and that would be HTML5 coding. And like you said, with text documents and stuff, you could actually make a dynamic page using PHP and JavaScript that would pull resources from any folder that they put in there and display it using HTML5. So basically, you could probably set it up so it would just be plug and play.
one of the examples of a different sort, that if people can find that on the files on the internet, but also on the device you've got, is the one called Study Room. And with Study Room, the reason why I mentioned it is laid out using something in HTML5, which is summary and details. So I can have a page which has learning to read, write, and do math in Raspberry Pi, begin math, being math in Raspberry Pi, has symbols in Python to common equivalents, basic operations, fractions, and numbers, all in one page. I click on the little arrow at the side, then it opens up that material. So you can then have all that material available like that. You can also then, with a print style sheet, print it out and have all that material on a single sheet. So you could have a printed out sheet if you wanted it that way.
Yeah, everybody's kind of familiar, you've seen the kind of accordion setups on a lot of pages, but this HTML5 doesn't rely on that.
If you just went on your device to Study Room, with the 192.168 and 5.1 test folder Study Room, .html. It's listed on the sheet or something.
Yeah.
Is it possible we can install the like a database like a MySQL and Apache servers on?
Well, this is up online too. It's on the list of the sites that. So I'm just mentioning it as an example of. Now this works in Chrome, it works in Safari, and it works in Opera. It does not work in Firefox. The summary and detail. That's what that's one of the things, and I just checked it the other day to see where it was. It works in everything but Firefox right now.
I'll bring Study Room up. I have actually, for those who
It's
are at home, show it here.
About 3 minutes left until 1 o'clock.
Okay.
But that was what I was just pointing out, another way to present material for teaching and learning. And I'm interested in other models. For instance, one of the other things I have up is a cookbook. And I mean, teaching people to cook is a wonderful way to learn. And as John pointed out, not only do you learn reading and math, but you learn chemistry.
And social skills.
And social skills, yeah. I mean, there's a whole lot, and also something about nutrition, you know. But those are the kinds of tools. I mean, I'm really interested in what people would like to see develop. What kinds of teaching and learning things you think would really be helpful?
The Jerry, we have for people who are watching on the internet and also for people in the room, this is the Study Room page that you built. This is an example of the summary and details tag. So if you click on the little caret, you get an additional open on these things. And those of you who've coded this stuff before usually know you've got to have something behind there, some JavaScript. This is actually an HTML5 tag. It works. You get this done. Only works right now on Chrome, though, right?
No, Chrome and Safari.
And
Opera. Just Firefox.
I've been waiting for this to get more ubiquitous. So this is kind of a way you can get these things organized.
And where you could have a whole lot of the information available very easily for people to go through without having to navigate to some other place.
Which is important because, especially since this is a web page, if they want to read and they leave and come back, it's easier to get back to where they are.
So you can get back to that place. But also, as I say, you can set up so that you can do a style sheet, so you can print it out. If you wanted to do that, then you have everything right now. But that's another example of a kind of layout. I've also done that with Ghosts and Stuff in there. And so they want all the short stories are you in separate. And so you could have them all in the same document. But that's always a possibility, but we also, I guess we run out of time.
Yeah, part of time.
That's what.
We have more time.
I thought it went till 1:30.
No, we have
Okay, all right, fine, I didn't know.
John, you have to leave.
No, I'm fine.
Okay, no, I thought. Well,
That's only one for you. Thanks.
Okay. Yeah. Because I have a question. Am I speaking loud enough, Dr. Passmore?
Pardon me? Oh, yes, you are.
Okay, as you can tell from the color of my hair, I'm older. I'm not a digital native. I'm a digital immigrant. So a lot of this language I don't understand. I understand some of it, but so what you're saying is, if I have one of those devices and all the little things that you talked about, like I took notes, the SD card, and you have to go somewhere and you have to download stuff, and you need, your battery and the computer and a storage chip, which is also called a card, right?
That's the SD card.
The SD card is a storage chip. And then you talked about the Wi-Fi connection. So I guess my question is, if I have one of those and I'm, 20 miles out in the country and I'm not near the internet, can I access the stuff you have, this,
If you've got this with you.
can I have that?
Yeah, if you've got that with you and you've
That's what
got
we're doing
somebody
here right now,
supply for it.
Okay.
That's actually happening right now in this room.
Without internet.
With no internet.
Oh.
Yeah.
There's no internet in this demonstration.
It's okay, it's okay, especially what you've got there, that's all done without connection to internet.
Yeah, it's connected right to this device. That's a little thingamajig right here is the dongle that's.
Okay, so that's
Doing the Wi-Fi.
the Wi-Fi connection is called the Wi-Fi dongle. That's the
Yeah.
same thing, okay?
And you can connect to that. That doesn't mean you have to. It just means you're connected to the device.
Okay, and connected to the device.
To the server built into the Raspberry Pi.
Okay, and then I can access the materials here. I guess because I'm thinking, and I think a lot of people in this room know my area of interest, helping individuals on the autism spectrum. I know of a young man. He lives, sort of out in the country, I think over near Tyrone, Pennsylvania. And he's a reader, he's a doer. He would love something like this. Internet lends itself very nicely to individuals on the spectrum. They can get in there and they can do things. They don't have to go and interact with people, which is tough for them. They're not looking somebody in the eye and somebody's looking at them, and they they're supposed to have a little bit of conversational reciprocity going on there. But they can get in here and use something like this. So anyway, this young man, he lives over here near Tyrone, and in fact, I did an assignment where this summer for one of my classes, and asked him to use the internet. Now, he did have to, because he doesn't have internet at home, they don't have a computer, his mom had to take him to the library to be able to do the things I was asking him to do. And so anyway, like I said, he would like something like this. So he could go and get all this and be able to access the materials on here.
The only step you would need internet for is the prep work, getting the device, getting the distro installed on the SD card. So, and the only thing, I mean,
He has friends. He could go and do that in somebody's apps, I'm sure.
And all he would need is something, or phone, or
I
something.
think they do have that at home, but he could get a monitor also, correct?
Well, you get it happens because I get the cheap monitors out of salvage, so the monitor, keyboard, and mouse I had here total about $50. So that can be very inexpensive if you can get they're secondhand. If they're not, then that makes it expensive.
saw a lot of portable monitors, like small, like 7-inch monitors at a group for people in the projects. Those can run up to $200. So those are a little more expensive.
Okay.
But like you said, you can get something cheaper.
One of the things that you might try before you did that was if you go to the site that's there for the novels,
Okay.
and if you simply save those files on a thumb drive, and then if you can plug that into a phone to see where you find reading novels book, because they're also they don't take much space. They're all text, and they're formatted in such a way that really take as little space as possible. So you get a dozen novels and it's not gonna take a lot of room. And that would be a possible way for him to see whether or not that something would work for him. Or,
That would just be to see that it on his phone as opposed to a monitor. Although,
And for the proximity, we should just buy him a monitor for $35 a film.
well, yeah, no, I mean, I think that's probably.
Keyboard's $5, monitor's $35, the mouse is $5, you're done.
But that, what I would just say that would be a way to, want to try it out. If he thought, okay, let's see what I'm gonna like to do this, that would be a way to access that material. Example of, a dozen novels, say, oh yeah, I find reading like this works, therefore I invest in the Raspberry Pi.
Okay.
And so you can do it for something that costs maybe.
although if he has a smartphone with like 3G or something, then most of the stuff he could do on his phone without a Raspberry.
Yeah.
Right, but one of the advantages to the way that Jerry's been doing HTML5 is that it's so small that you don't run over a bandwidth limit. Maybe you only had a 2 GB plan, for instance, on your smartphone. If you didn't want to spend a lot of money every month for an unlimited plan or even a very large data plan, the type of documents we're talking about here are tiny. But the smaller than bringing down everything that he has there is smaller than watching a couple of YouTube videos per hour.
I often point out to my classes that 1 second of low-res YouTube video is 4 megabytes. One piece, as an HTML5, is 3.3 megabytes.
One piece.
I mean, that's the kind of relative escape that you get when you're dealing with the different kinds of media. So that when you think about it, you think about, okay, what are the efficient ways to deliver information in terms of space, text, really trumps everything else.
No, it's not as interactive, say, as a video or a picture.
But it's also, it's not as interactive, but it's also much easier to edit, locate the information in, all kinds of other aspects.
And corrections too.
Make corrections.
Yeah, I think that's another thing, even though people might have internet access, that bandwidth load that you have can be significant to run over. If you really are interested in watching all the Khan Academy videos on pre-calculus, you might run on your phone, you might run over, right? So that's another issue. To provide, if you really are motivated to have video, you can have video in a place like this without.
Yeah.
Are there other things? You have devices on the table. You might want to take a look at those. I wonder if folks who are on the internet, this is going to take about 15 seconds to get out there, but if those of you on the internet have other questions, Rose has
one more. The one person asks us, what is the advantage of the unit when I can buy a unit with a screen, Wi-Fi, keyboard, some memory, less than 1 gigabyte SD slot for less than $100, and I can see a unit like this competing with
Arduino.
Yeah.
Okay. You all know what it is.
It's a similar device, yeah.
Okay.
But what's
So the person saying about why would they buy this? Well, I think the real reason is that based on what you've all talked about and me being totally away from the Raspberry Pi, this is my first introduction to one, is that this is something that I could take someplace where there's nothing.
Right.
So if I was out in the middle of Wyoming where there's nothing, then this is something that could help a school in that in middle Wyoming, just like it happens in Africa.
It's the difference between being a server and serving multiple people and being a single focused device like a smartphone. You could use a smartphone and on the used market get a very decent smartphone that can download all these documents. I had 16 gigabytes of storage on it. eBay used HTC Incredible is $25. So that's a completely functioning device with internet access and Wi-Fi and so on. But it can only do what you loaded on it. It's only for you. If you need to share it with someone else,
There's no
then
share.
the server idea really works well. Also, if you want to back annotate things, working on something that is designed to just be a consumer of information is not as good pushing out to be a provider of information.
So the Raspberry Pi works as a provider and as a server.
Right.
Okay, so that would answer
Same
all
sort of thing,
questions.
yeah.
And it's also very modular, so you can replace the whole computer without having to replace all the parts of it.
Right.
Okay. And then Jesse writes on the part here, says about, I said, I think it collaborates with Arduino, Arduino rather than compete. So there's a Raspberry Pi.
They're separate ecosystems. It's sort of, they have the same purpose, and they might be able to work together, but they're really separate ecosystems, different.
Arduino is designed to do a single task at a time. Raspberry Pi is intentionally a multi-user operating system.
Okay.
It can be used as a single user, but, and like you could use it for reading documents if you're going to sit there and read them on that by yourself with nobody else in the room. It's a single user device. It's more than what you needed. Maybe an Arduino might be the appropriate thing. But Arduino may be something you could use to gather data from, building an HVAC system, bring that data in, feed it to the Pi builds it into a web page, and then people can come to that web page and see what's going on in the building.
Mm-hmm.
So the Arduino is a task-oriented device, where the Raspberry Pi is a generic server sort of
It's a
device.
microcomputer.
Yeah.
Do anything.
Anything you've heard.
Right. It's a dumb device, but
I wanted to deliver.
Jesse also writes on here about that there's hackability of the Pi, and it says there's an example of a Pi running a waterproof stop motor camera on the website, and it says that it can also be interchanged with the replacement Pi, and none of the peripherals need to change.
right.
Mouse,
Right.
keyboard, monitor.
That's one of the pros.
Something bad happens, some bad person comes in and sits down and connects in here and hacks through that and puts up bad things on the server portion. All Jerry has to do is yank out the card, plug in another copy of the card, and he's right back where he started after that person has left. So for $30, we can recover from a hacking incident, and then you just erase the other card and it's usable again. So,
I mean, it's a local network, so it's might be easy to identify who's the hackers.
right, yeah.
The bright fifth grade.
Right, so from here though, we can't see through that wall, they could just easily be sitting in a chair out in the hallway, it could be in this room.
But
So
so it would have to be
80
within the proximity.
Within the proximity of the Wi-Fi
Yeah,
access.
so it's really unlikely to be.
I think you'd have to be really disruptive character.
They mentioned the word hacking online, I just wanted to address
That's
that.
right.
And
We
brave.
didn't have it in quotation marks.
Yes. Okay, then there's a good hacker, the person who's putting things together for the benefit of others.
There you go.
Are there other questions, comments, anything else from the, and you said something about Wyoming being far out there, and
Well, I would
I'm
say
sure
that-
somebody from Wyoming is on, they're writing back right now.
Well, they
Angry.
just-
Giving you the Oprah Winfrey.
Well, out in the middle of Wyoming, there is no network that are like what we are used to here. Well, as Jerry knows, 7 miles away from Center State College, there's no network like we have here.
I would be interested in getting some of the code that you have, some of the HTML5, just for example.
All you need to do is just go to the sites that are on the data circulator. That has three of them. Well, and that has most of the stuff that shows the ideas. And those are the ones that are, you can just look at the source and it's all there.
It's interesting, somebody, just a sidebar here, somebody wrote and said, I tried to go to the site and I put www in front of that, and and that Rose mentioned, this is Jerry's Dropbox. It's running this. This is Site 44 is a little add-on to Dropbox.
Yes.
And you can immediately be on the net with something that you might put from your phone or any other kind of thing. So if you have a Dropbox, you have a web server.
And what the,
It doesn't seem to present this afternoon, but I can tell.
as a point about those three as examples, is the first being a collection of novels for reading long text. The second was a study room, which is a series of examples of little study modules. And the third was a cookbook as a model for a how to do manual. As three different kinds of setups for studying materials. And I'm interested in people who have other ideas about other things that you would do, which would be other models that people could base study materials on. You know, certainly reading long text is a very useful way, but it isn't the only way. And the short tutorials about math or other
I have all, I'm just broadcasting some of these now. I have the novels up there right now, and you can see that Jerry's has everything in there, including James Joyce and all that. And he wasn't brave enough to put Finnegan's Wake. No one can read it anyhow.
Well, yeah. Also, one of the problems with Finnegan's Wake and Ulysses, they're over the line for this country. They aren't for Australia. So you can get them at eBooks Adelaide, but I was a little reluctant to.
And this is the other file we have up is the study room, and this is the one that shows the use of the summary and details tags in HTML5 to provide a kind of concise way of laying
and that, and this is, but I see them as models of different kind of teaching situations. And that's not, certainly not all the things. It's three different, very different sorts of tools you can use for teaching and learning.
And this is the cookery piece, and it has things on which I need to know more about, beef soup stock and the like. And these are all set up, by the way, I think the instructive thing working with Jerry's stuff is if you go and look at the HTML, he has these very well annotated. He has Google fonts that he brings in.
Yeah.
And also these are kind of getting to the Berners-Lee quote that you often give. Maybe recite that once for us so we remember it again.
I'm trying to visual.
Anywhere.
Oh, yeah. For anyone, anywhere, or anything.
Yeah.
And one of the things I should mention is that on the Pi, I don't embed the fonts because obviously you can't go out and get them. Now, it happens that on the Pi they do have Droid Serif, which is my favorite font to embed. Droid Serif and Droid Sans, and they're Steve Matheson did these fonts, and they're ones that are designed for the Droid system, and they're very good fonts, very, very useful, very easy to read. But they happen to be resident fonts in the Pi, so I don't put the embedding in those because then it goes out searching around for it and can't find it until I the whole thing. But when I have the HTML pages, I do have the fonts embedded because then it works that way, and it doesn't matter what is resident on the computer. Now, you notice with these different devices I've got around, some of them support different fonts and some of them don't. That's various. But even when it goes to the default sans, they still work, they still read it.
And one of the people online here has a comment about, so they're still curious about the Raspberry, or about the Raspbian Pi Store.
Yes, Raspbian Pi Store.
Been experience with the Raspbian Pi Store?
.com? What is it?
I don't really know. I just have Raspbian Pi Store here in front of me.
Okay, so Raspbian is just one of the operating systems. You go to raspberrypi.org, and that's where the executables are that would be included with the Raspberry, like the Raspbian operating system, you can find it from other sources, I'm sure, but I would start by just Googling for Raspbian, R-A-S-P-B-I-N.
Is that how they have it spelled? R-A-S-P-B-I-A-N.
Yeah.
And then that will come up with enough of the links to be able to find it from there.
I thought that the Raspbian is the Linux system based on the Debian Linux 4.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right, someone has already done that work.
It's one of the.
So that executable is available to bring and put onto your SD cards, which you then boot the Raspberry Pi from, and then you can run something on top of that, like Rachel.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And if you go to raspberrypi.org, it has like I think there's like 10 official, like, certified distributions that they've checked out, but there's a lot more spread throughout the web that you can try and use and see if it meets your purposes.
Okay, well, you have other things on here at this moment? Well, thank you very much, Jerry. And I wanted to say that for those of you who are on the Google Hangout, that this YouTube video that has been cached from this will be available on the website for the Dharma Bums Brownbag, which is train.ed.psu.edu/brownbag. So that's train.ed.psu.edu/brownbag. And all of our brown bags are archived there, and this video will be archived there with these materials. So thank you very much, Jerry.
Well, thank you.